Good evening, one and all. Welcome along. It is season 5, episode 21 of the UK Dallas Cowboys podcast. We know we're a few minutes late. Technical issues and Brian being stupid just don't add up. But as you can see, I'm joined by Rich, I'm joined by Graham, and you can see him there underneath me. I'm joined by RJ. How are things, RJ?
It's great to be with y'all. Things are well. Getting ready for a pretty busy week here in the States.
I'm not going to comment on what you just said, Rich.
I have no idea what you're on about, Brian. I deny everything.
Look, as always, it is great to have everyone joining us. And Graham, your biggest fan is in the house tonight. So we have limited this down. RJ, one of our biggest dilemmas has been trying to find out who the big Lebarski is. He loves Graham, and we think we might have nailed it now.
Oh, I hope so. I've actually never seen that movie, so that's my bad.
Wow. I'm going to admit I'm in that club. I've not seen the big Lebarski either. So there we go.
I couldn't possibly comment either.
Sure, be ashamed of yourself.
So, as RJ alluded to, and as many of you know, a lot of our UK Cowboys admin team are actually in flight right now down towards Dallas. They're only going to be a couple of hours away from you, RJ, landing into Big Dallas. I think you're avoiding Dallas this week for fear of liver damage.
I think that there's going to be some good times ahead. That's the word on the street, at least. So I hope your boys are safe, and I hope they make it back across the pond in one piece. But I'd have to say the odds are not high in that respect.
Yeah, especially when Jamie's involved, it's not going to end well.
You boys would not want to have seen the WhatsApp messages that I've seen today. They're not pretty. But look. Obviously, we're here to talk about the most important thing. Post-match, Cowboys win another one, 33-10 at the Bank of America Stadium. It was a sellout, and I think over 50% of the crowd was a Cowboys crowd, and we still remain second in the NFC East, and that doesn't look like it's about to change anytime soon.
That's just what's unfortunate. It's you were hoping for an early Christmas present from the Chiefs, slightly move it back towards number 1 in the division, but wasn't to be. So we'll just have to take the win as a win, and hopefully they'll slip up somewhere along the way.
This is the thing, right? Does it really matter that much in the grand scheme of things? Because you're not going to get the first seed either which way. Because realistically, looking at the rest of the schedule, that's probably going to go to someone like Detroit. So if you win the East, if you don't, does it really matter that much? Especially when you take into account the last few times they've gone in.
Yeah.
Or a couple of times they have. When they've had buys, it's not ended well.
Yeah.
Maybe staying on and playing playing the extra game, not having the time off will do them better. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or do you think unless you're having to buy, I don't see the point.
Yeah. Or do I think you had a pretty good tweet about this last night? Or if it wasn't you, it was one of the team at Blogging the Boys. But basically, you were saying finishing in the 5th spot in the wildcard slot is not going to be ideal for this team either.
I mean, I don't know if somebody said that. I think if Dallas can't win the division and be the 1 seed, I think the most optimal situation is to be the 5 seed. I mean, I think if you consider the NFC right now to kind of have 4 premier teams, obviously Philadelphia, Dallas, San Francisco, and Detroit. Right now, Philly would have the bye, and I think that Dallas would have the best matchup in the wild card round. Currently, Detroit would host Minnesota, San Francisco would host Seattle. Those are both divisional matches, obviously, for those 2 teams. And plus, New Orleans, who Dallas would visit, granted, is kind of the weakest of the 3. And so, if you can't be the 1 seed in the NFC, I think that the place you want to be is the 5 seed. And so, it's unfortunate that Dallas couldn't get any help on Monday night, but they did pick up a lot of help on Sunday. What with Seattle losing, Minnesota losing, and Washington losing, their lead on the 5 seed has grown, and they have a chance to put even more distance between them in the field, obviously on Thursday, and particularly next Thursday when they host the Seahawks.
Yeah, for sure. Look, before we get into the bones of the program, I think the most important thing and the greatest news that we all heard on Sunday night before the game even kicked off, Jimmy Johnson is finally going into the Ring of Honor. Gentlemen, give us your thoughts.
I mean, I guess I'll start just quickly. I mean, I don't know anybody who's like, oh, that's a good idea. Like everybody has been on board with this for a very long time. And so it's well deserved at this point. Obviously, I think we're all happy for Jimmy. Something I've just been thinking about a lot is I'm really happy for some older fans. My dad, I'm really happy for him because I think this is something that every Cowboys fan should get to experience. Every Cowboys fan should get to see that moment, should get to see Jimmy's name up there. It's something that means something, not just to Jimmy, obviously, but to everybody who loves this team. And so this is a good thing. No matter, we can sit here and get on Jerry for taking too long, but at the end of the day, it is going to happen, and that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could have happened a lot sooner, and it probably should have happened a lot sooner. But at least we can stop talking about it being a probability and it being a fact now. So yeah, he's one of the greatest Cowboys head coaches of all time, and he's in the ring. We can stop the debate now. Happy for Jimmy, delighted that he's now where he should be. Just a shame it took so long. But good things come to those who wait. So I guess we'll just put it down to that.
Yeah,
Rich, go ahead.
I'm with Lebowski. I'm hoping this is demons are exorcised and the curse is lifted because I'm sure that's a very real thing. But no, in all seriousness, it's been a long time coming. It was just nice to see. It was nice to see the pair of them there, standing, smiling, talking, being a bit open and honest, and saying, "Look, we've not really talked that much over the years," and things like that. It's nice to see. It's just one of those soft, fuzzy moments you get in football, and it was nice. It was a long time coming. Nice to finally see it.
Yeah. And as Mark Anthony here says, JJ going in is way overdue, as we all know. If you'd listened to the press conference with Jimmy and Jerry, if you have not listened to the press conference with Jimmy and Jerry, I highly recommend it. RJ, just kind of going back to Lebarski's point on this, let's hope the curse is lifted. I mean, what is the feeling over there on that side of the pond in terms of this supposed curse that, Jimmy wasn't going into the Ring of Honor and we're not getting to the Super Bowl, and is it all just a media story? I
mean, I don't like it's sports, and so everybody has weird kind of beliefs, and I don't subscribe to curses and things like that. Something I always found funny along these lines, if you all recall, Jerry himself was enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the summer of 2017. A few months later, he received his Hall of Fame ring at halftime of a Cowboys game and was celebrated, obviously, for being a Hall of Famer. I don't know if you remember what game that was, but that was a Sunday night game where the Cowboys hosted the Philadelphia Eagles in the season that the Eagles would go on to win their first ever Super Bowl. Not only is that a painful enough memory, but at the time, the Eagles gave the Cowboys the worst loss they had ever experienced in that building. So again, if you believe in curses and you believe that Jerry was kind of part of them, the night that he was getting his respective honor was quite possibly the worst night in the history of AT&T Stadium, which is a building that is kind of celebrated alongside of his overall fame and accomplishments.
Yeah. So getting into the game itself, look, what was everyone's initial thoughts? I mean, my own word that, look, there was never any danger we were going to lose this game. There was good, there was bad. Kind of when I looked at putting the numbers together, I was like, wow, it's a lot sparser than I imagined, but give us your initial thoughts.
It's funny, Brian, because I had that thought 5 minutes before the start of the Cardinals game. We were never going to lose this game. It was just nice to see them, be the heavy favorite and to have the result of the heavy favorite. Because the Cardinals game still stings for me particularly. Yeah. They did bring up the stat, that you can spin stats obviously multiple ways, and they did bring up the stat that the Cowboys are 0-2 against teams over 500. You can only beat who is put in front of you, and Sunday night was effectively that. It was a game where there were banana skins everywhere, and the Cowboys avoided all of them. I don't think we ever looked like we were going to lose that game, but prior to the start of the Cardinals game, you'd have thought the exact same thing, and that came back to sting. So to get the win on the road was nice, and it was a tick box exercise for me, effectively. In terms of the Panthers, they've got some nice pieces, but it's going to be a long, hard season, and they need the draft all over again. Too early to call Bryce Young, but 2 1s and 2 2s. I don't know. That's looking mighty steep right now.
Yeah. RJ, if I asked you, and Graham alluded to the point there in terms of Bryce Young, 2 1s, 2 2s, it's looking like CJ Stroud is the better quarterback right now. But I mean, you have to allow Bryce Young a bit of time, and you have to allow for them to actually build an O-line around him,
Yeah, I mean, it's been such an interesting kind of thing to follow. The Panthers didn't have the traditional number 1 overall pick. I think if they'd been the worst team in the NFL last year, I think people would maybe be a little bit more patient with them. But the fact that they've mortgaged a bit of their future certainly kind of casts a bit of a shadow over their kind of immediate plans to surround Bryce Young. And I think what Stroud has going for him beyond his own talents and his own merits is his head coach. I mean, DeMeco Ryans certainly seems like a qualified NFL head coach, whereas Frank Reich, I mean, this retread with him always kind of felt like it started off left-footed for Carolina, and everything about the process that the Panthers have going on right now is just really kind of doubtful. And so good on the Cowboys. Like you said, I know it was a little bit tighter than we would have liked, got down to a 1-possession game. And I know we've all been scarred by Cowboys teams in the past that have kind of, thrown games like that away, slipped on the banana skin, so to speak, as you said, Graham. It's really nice to see that they just, that end of third quarter, fourth quarter sequence it was no longer a game. It was just a decision. The Cowboys just decided, okay, enough playing around. Let's get done. Let's get this win. Let's get home. We have a quick week. We don't need to kind of be, messing around with these guys anymore. But you blinked and all of a sudden it was 30-10.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just to let everyone know, so Craig has landed safely into Dallas, and Lauren and the boys are actually watching us on flight AA0079 over US airspace. So they are headed your way very quickly, RJ.
I can feel them, honestly, in the sky. So if you're over the airspace, then I think you're in outer space. I think you're within the airspace if we're just being technically correct here.
He has a point.
This is true. just looking at some of the comments here coming in. So there's a lot of comments on Facebook between the guys. So Craig is in the security queue. Lauren is still on the plane, but we love to have everyone commenting and interacting with each other outside of us talking. We cannot leave this game without talking about Deron Bland. Another pick six. He's tied the NFL record. He's getting a touchdown every 2.5 games. There's 7 games to go in the season. I mean, RJ, he's on pace for 7 touchdowns this year, which is more than a lot of number 1 wide receivers on any of their teams.
Yeah, I mean, his 4 touchdown receptions would be tied for the team lead on the Giants or the Commanders. I mean, he's had 4 pick sixes in 10 games. I mean, like it's the week of Thanksgiving and he's had 4. I mean, that's just absurd when you really say it. And the only thing that annoys me about this is it will give life in the future to people that they'll talk about future 5th round picks of the Cowboys and be like, I think they found another Deron Bland. Like this is not normal. This is not something that you can pull off every year. This is just an incredible job by the Cowboys scouting department and coaching staff, and obviously by Deron himself to be able to put himself in such prominent position all the time. This was his prettiest interception, I think, as a member of the Cowboys, which is really saying something.
Yeah. Rich, I know you wanted to talk specifically about Deron Bland, so give us the thoughts, give us the feelings on that 4th touchdown of the year.
Well, it was it was just a question that was asked a lot yesterday and today in a lot of the media. Does he deserve to be in contention now for Defensive Player of the Year? Does he deserve to be in conversation? And I think the obvious answer there is yes. You look at it statistically, outside of the 4 pick sixes, what he's done in the stretch, this 10-game stretch, statistically, how he's performing in terms of points allowed, yardage allowed, all the rest of it, he is statistically the best in the league right now. It's crazy. There was something else here today. What was it? Something to do with, I think it was, I don't think it was Pro Football, but some sort of stat it was that the person he beat was Stephon Gilmore, and the statistic that he put up was in the year that he got Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah. I mean, RJ, is he in the running for Defensive Player of the Year?
Probably not. I mean, if we're fair, I think his name should certainly be mentioned in conversations that you have, but this feels like Myles Garrett's award at this point. It's just he's kind of the face of the best defense in the NFL. Again, all due respect to Deron Bland, but Stephon Gilmore's season was really unique in that he was just this kind of coverage monster, and there wasn't this sack monster that was having an amazing season at the same time. And so if it was a down year for sacks in the NFL, maybe Deron would have a bit more of an argument, but I think he probably maybe finishes 3rd in voting at the very best. It's just a very difficult award to win if you don't have a lot of sack numbers.
Yeah. So speaking of sack numbers, Graham, Micah Parsons was conspicuous by his absence last week on the stat sheet. He more than made up for that this weekend with 2.5 sacks, a couple of quarterback pressures, multiple tackles for loss. He really threw himself back into that conversation for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I'm guessing he took it personally. There are no motor questions about Micah Parsons, and if he doesn't get on the stat sheet one week, we shouldn't burn the building down because of it. He can't be expected to turn out those numbers every single game because he is going to see double coverage, or not double attention, chips, and they're moving him all over the field now to get away from that kind of stuff, and he's the focal point. And if stats don't turn up one week, then you can be sure that they're in the post, and Sunday night was the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
These things come in bunches. We know this. It was the same before with Tank. Everyone was like, "Oh, look, let's start shipping him around. He's not getting any sacks." And then lo and behold, these things come in bunches. There'll be spells, dry spells, and then there'll be very wet spells. It'll even itself out. Be fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like you kind of mentioned the name DeMarcus Lawrence. And again, DeMarcus had another big game on Sunday. Like Graham, we joke with you and say, you hate on DeMarcus a lot. But I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence does an awful lot of good for this defense in terms of he sets that edge on his side, keeps everything pushed in towards the defensive tackles. Mike is free to do what Micah is good at. And RJ, you kind of said it there in terms of probably the Cleveland Browns are the best defense in the league at the minute. I mean, how far off is this Dallas Cowboys defense?
I mean, I feel like we've seen the title kind of float around a little bit this season. San Francisco's obviously always in the running. Baltimore's kind of had their moment under the sun. It feels like we've seen this Cowboys defense be more impressive at earlier times in the season. I mean, I don't want to hate on the Cowboys, but we're just a few weeks removed from them allowing the Eagles to have 100% conversion in the red zone. And while they're an amazing defense, I mean, that's not something that you do if you are the very, very best in the entire league. And so they're top 5. I think, they have a ceiling of being top 1, but that's things firing on all cylinders, and that's not always the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing we all want to see next week or on Thursday night is keeping Micah away from the C4 energy powder drinks. I think that provided a little bit of light entertainment yesterday after the bones of the game itself.
Oh yeah, the sounds from the sideline might be interesting to start with.
I've never been a protein powder person myself, but yeah, I can't imagine. I imagine that's like a levitating sort of experience to kind of go through that.
Well, yeah. What is it? How did you describe? You said it felt like his heart was going to be pounding out of its chest, so it's kind of like, I don't know, something from some show match with Alien or something. I don't know.
Yeah. When I was in college, I pulled an all-nighter once and drank 2 Monsters, and that's probably the closest I've ever come to feeling what Micah felt. It's a unique thing.
Can you just imagine like someone gone, "This is a good idea," thinking he's not going to do it, and then he did it. I bet that's what happened. I'd put money on it. Never again. Maybe half a scoop was the best bit he said at the end. Maybe half a scoop, but I was like, "Are you sure about that? Like 2.5 sacks? Like, you sure you don't want to do it again?"
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe a little bit.
Something that, Rich, I know I'd spoken to you before the show, and you kind of said you wanted to have a little talk about it, and Lebarski has brought it up here. And if you all want to give us your thoughts, like Panthers have the worst running offense, and they ran all over us. They were stupid to get away from the run.
This is something Brian Broaddus said, and I completely agree with him again. And I know I say that a lot, but I generally do. The man seems to talk a lot of common sense. Is like the Cowboys haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher on them so far. Yeah. And that looks good on the face of it. But then you take into account what they're doing or have been doing for the most part generally in terms of putting points on the board, the differential there. They're putting teams in a position to have to pass the ball, which is quite clever when you think about it. If that is deliberate, or even if it's not, it works really well because by making teams pass the ball is when you're really wanting your defensive line and the pass rush to shine through and net, and people like Deron Bland do what they need to do or what they do best, as we found out this season. But then you come up against a San Francisco and it all comes undone. And the point there is valid. Teams are able still to run on this defense and have success, but they're not sticking with it because of the success that Dallas is having in other facets. So I am still concerned quite a lot because for the past couple of weeks, I think we've sort of been lulled into a false sense of security over this run defense. And I think it's exactly that. I think it's a false sense of security. I'm really concerned about it going down the road.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chip in on that one?
I mean, if they have to abandon the run, it's a good thing. Like you're saying, they're having to chase the lead. We saw Mazzy Smith and Odigizua do some good things on Sunday. It's not like there's nothing there. It's a particularly young unit. I think that we've still got a little bit to go in terms of experience. But I see where Rich is coming from. It's not perfect. You know, like how does it do against the 49ers or an Eagles? You know, how does
or
it
when
stand
you go
up
and play in cold weather?
How does it stand up in January? That's when we find out for real.
Yeah, it's when you come up against a decent defense and you're having to run the ball and defend against running the ball. Are you going to be able to keep up then? Like then, are you going to be having to play catch up and maybe trying to pass the ball more because that's the only way you've had any real kind of success? It's worrying.
Very good. So if we kind of flick into the game a little bit itself, like the initial thing that hit me, and I was kind of surprised by this. Dak was under 200 yards passing. We only had 100 yards rushing. And yet we still won comfortably, won by 23 points. You know, this is the fifth 20-plus point victory we've had this season. I mean, RJ, like, we're hearing consistently that this Cowboys team beats the teams they should beat, bar the Cardinals, but they can't do it against the teams that are better than them. You know, are we just kind of like, are these 20-plus point defeats lulling us into a false sense of security, or do we know where we are?
I mean, I think, excuse me, I think multiple things can be true. I think people want to point to the fact that Dallas hasn't beaten a team with an above 500 record, and act like that means that they're these pretenders. I would offer, I mean, you know, we're at week 12 now. I would like to see the team that has played 10 teams with an above 500 record. It just simply isn't the case. It's unfortunate that Dallas lost those games, but what a surprise. They lost games to some really good football teams, right? Like that happens sometimes. And so, you know, I think you look at a lot of advanced metrics. You look at their overall offensive and defensive EPA. You look at their DVOA rankings. You look at things that are a little bit more simplistic, like their point differential. This feels similar to last year's Eagles team, although granted, you know, that team had only lost one game to this point in the season, and that they're just beating up on these bad teams. And you can argue that they should have beaten the Eagles. I think we could stretch ourselves really far and make that argument. You can't argue that they should have beaten the 49ers. They play that game 100 times. They lose it every single one. But I mean, this ultimately, and this is frustrating for a lot of people, but this is ultimately about getting a ticket to the tournament. That's it. Like, that's the whole purpose of all of this. I mean, that when the playoffs start, nobody gets more money at go because, you know, you beat more teams of an above 500 record. You don't get pole position. Maybe you get home field advantage if you want to consider that something significant. But I mean, the Cowboys are becoming a team that is consistently a part of the tournament. And the odds are that if you are in it year in and year out, that eventually the breaks will go your way. Eventually the calls will go your way. Eventually it will be your time. And so I know that it's not the tastiest, meatiest thing ever to beat the Panthers 33-10, but it's another win. They're 7-3. I mean, they're 7-3 through 10 games for the third year in a row. I think like every year at Thanksgiving, they're 7-3. They're right there in the hunt for the playoffs. And so they have, as a result of it all, I think made winning a little boring. I mean, I think that it's a little bit mundane to us because it's become so common. And so I think it's a little bit of attrition in that sense.
Yeah. Just being respectful of your time, RJ, just one question before you need to get out of here. Are that team up north who are now 9-1. Are they the luckiest team to ever be 9-1, or are we just trying to pick on them?
I would love to sit here and say that they're frauds and that they're completely lucky. But they have, I hate to give them credit, they have mastered the art of surviving until they have to do the one or two things that are absolutely necessary. And then they do those one or two things. And yeah, you can certainly talk about, I think they've had 4 straight fumbles of their own now that they've recovered, 3 of which obviously came against our team. The Justin Jefferson fumble through the end zone way back when at the beginning of the season. There are definite signs of good luck working in their favor. But they are a consistent enough team that they put themselves in positions to capitalize on that luck. And you would think that it would run out eventually. But, they haven't lost a lot in this little era. And that's really, really, really frustrating. And so I will say that if they don't lose on Sunday, that if I asked all 3 of you what the biggest game remaining for the Cowboys is, I think you'd probably say the Eagles game, the rematch. It might not be. I mean, that the cold reality is if they don't lose, then that game won't mean a ton for them because they can lose that game to Dallas and still have breathing room in the NFC East. And so unless they slip up between now and then, the biggest remaining game for Dallas might be next week's game against the Seahawks because that could be Dallas's primary challenger for that 5 seed that we talked about. So it's annoying. And I'm not a big believer in the Bills, which makes this week very, very frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just being respectful of your time, RJ, what is the plan for Thanksgiving for you?
Brian, I know you'll appreciate this. I'm going to smoke our Thanksgiving Day turkey on the pellet grill. So I'm going to brine it starting tomorrow, actually, for about 24 hours. My son turns 2 on Friday, so it's kind of a fun week around here. So hopefully the Cowboys take care of business, give us some reason to celebrate, give us the weekend off. We can all kind of sit back and relax and root for Buffalo to make this thing a little bit more tight of a race. But yeah, turkey, mac and cheese, potatoes, green beans. We're doing the whole thing. And I hope you guys, I know it's an American holiday, but I hope you have something delicious and have some good family time as well. And that you all have your own happy Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. And look, before we let you go, RJ, where can everyone catch you on your socials?
At RJ Ochoa is just kind of a hub for everything I do on Twitter, on Instagram, on Threads, just kind of always sharing stuff, annoying people, posting pictures of my dog. One of the two, because they're always keeping us on our toes. But yeah, RJ Ochoa is where you can find me just about anywhere you get content.
Absolutely. So look, RJ, we do appreciate the time. We know you have things to be doing today, and we're really thankful that you could join us and help us out with today's show.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. You tell your UK boys to leave our country the way they found it and not to break it too much.
Oh, you're ambitious.
All right. Listen, thank you very much, RJ, and we'll talk to you soon.
Glory, glory, Man United. Everybody else sucks. Y'all have a good one.
Love it.
Goodbye.
Oh,
it's a good job we didn't have Jamie on because he'd think I put RJ up to that.
I know.
But Joe, to be fair, and look, as always, folks, look, you know how much we appreciate your comments and everything you guys say and what your thoughts are. But Joe was saying we don't celebrate Thanksgiving in Italy, so I'm having a big pizza while watching the Dallas game. I mean, gents, what are you guys doing for Thanksgiving?
Staying up late, watching Dallas annihilate Washington, whatever the heck they want to call themselves this time.
Yeah, nothing too special. I'll just be having I don't know, a regular dinner. Like I don't try and compete with the guys that do special things to amazing looking turkeys. I don't compete with that. So I'll get my popcorn and get ready for a show and just call it a day at that.
I'm not even gonna try and like do a cheap ass version of Mike's stuff that he does on Thanksgiving, because it's just not going to be as good, and I'll just end up depressed. So I'll just wait for a year, and hopefully get some next year, because goddamn, those things are amazing. But I might just get a small turkey and chuck it in the air fryer or something. I don't know. I probably just offended all of America by saying that, but you know, I
you
want
mean
my tea
you're
back.
not going to deep fry it, Rich?
No, I'm not going to deep fry it. No. That's too much oil. I don't have a big enough pot. No.
I'm just trying to remember when the last time was that the Lions had a better record than the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. The Lions at 8-2.
1962, possibly.
That's incredible.
That's a while ago. Like,
yeah,
that is unbelievable.
Yeah. Graham, I'm hoping you've read Labarski's comment there about you. So for those of you who can't see this comment, so we have a feeling Labarski might be one of the other admins in this group, and he said, "I'm going to have dinner with the family, watch the game, and then get back to working on my Graham shrine." So Labarski and Graham have a huge bromance going on.
Although it's very one-sided, with maybe a telescopic sight on a camera.
And Elizabeth, as always, tuning in. Elizabeth has said it's dangerous to deep fry a turkey.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's also another reason I won't be doing it. Thank you, Elizabeth.
So we'll turn off from being...
We'll deep fry anything in Glasgow.
Shut up, Scotland. Just shut up. Stop deep frying everything. Just normally.
Listen, if you can deep fry a Mars bar, you can deep fry anything.
I'll deep fry you in a minute. Labarski will probably deep fry you.
No, Labarski won't do anything to hurt Graham.
No, I won't do anything to hurt you. I'll just make sure you sleep soundly for the rest of your life.
So Labarski said it's not one-sided, that he loves Graham too.
There's like I love him too. So there's like, yeah, well done. He's
but look,
yeah, it's either two-sided or he's schizophrenic.
Yeah. But look, let's get back to the game. As we say, look, this is the point of the show. And look, Rich, we kind of gave RJ the first half of the show. You know, we'll go back to some of the points that you guys had mentioned you wanted to discuss. The defensive and the run game. You know, it is a slight concern for me as well, in terms of they gave up yards quite easily, and you know, Mazzy Smith has had a couple of good games, and now he's suddenly not had it. You know, he's not appearing on the stat sheets, and I know it's sometimes difficult with a defensive tackle to say what they've done, but you know, it just seems to be a little bit hot and cold in the run game in particular, and stopping it.
Well, yeah, it's a case of I just feel like it was a very good point that Brian made, that Brian Broadus made, not you, because you never make a good point, but very rarely. But yeah, it struck me, and it's like you look at, because like when we looked at the games earlier on in the season, we were like, okay, the run defense actually has improved. It looks like it's improved. It visually looks like it's improved. Statistically, it looks like it has taken an uptick. But are we just being lulled into a false sense of security by the offensive output, which is helped by the likes of Deron Bland? Massively. I mean, the point was made earlier. If you said, what was it, 21-point difference? You take 7 points off that. The third down conversion rate wasn't that great. The offense was humming along, not amazingly. Yeah. But Dallas does have this really annoying habit of playing teams at their level up to a point, and they'll play down to teams, which is, to me, is just indicative of discipline. But it's like, I get it. It can be hard, But
yeah,
it does worry me. It really does worry me, and it's throwing me off a little bit in terms of where does this run defense actually sit. How much of that is true, because it's like RJ said with a lot of things, it's no one thing. Multiple things can be true and probably are, but to what extent is the concerning thing. But then the only way to really find out is just to wait and see.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Graham, in a couple of weeks, as we say, that team from up north is going to be traveling to AT&T Stadium, and not too far behind them, you're going to have the Detroit Lions visiting AT&T Stadium.
Yep.
Both with strong run games. I mean, is it a concern?
I just hope it matters by then. I thought the Chiefs were going to do us a favor. Obviously, they haven't. Just hope it matters by then. The Lions are having a fantastic season. Very much like, I mean, at a glance, I obviously I don't watch much Lions football, but they sound very much like the 49ers in that they play defense and they run the ball. I couldn't tell you who their stud wide receiver is. So maybe that's a way to get after them. But we've talked earlier in the show about the Cowboys' run defense, and you're going to have some very good running teams matching up against us towards the end of the season or the regular season. So they're going to have to. They're going to have to lift the run game level. We can't rely on building up a score to quiet the run against us. I mean, I know that the best defense is to keep your offense on the field, but eventually somebody's going to get us off the field on third down and take the lead or tie the game at some point, and the run game is going to be in our face. So, we'll see. I mean, obviously, if we can keep the scores up against teams, like take a couple of score lead, that would be great. But ideally, that's the ideal scenario. You're probably not going to get that against the Lions and the Eagles. They will stay in games. So, a little boost for the run defense would be good.
Yeah. Point that I kind of took out of this game, and I know there's been a few comments on this going around Twitter, is that the offensive line has not given up a sack in the last two games. That it's something like 150 snaps or close to 150 snaps, where we've had our starting offensive line playing together and playing as a unit. There were a couple of times where Tyler Biadasz got bull rushed by Brian Burns, and Zach Martin kind of got exposed because he was looking to his right to try and help with Terrence Steele, and Burns went straight through the gap between Zach Martin and Tyler Biadasz. Again, is that a concern for either of you?
What do you think, Graham? Is the O-line a concern for either of us?
Yeah, why don't you just go and wave the red flag at the bull again, Brian, and see what happens? I mean, they do have some talent, the Panthers. Derek Brown's a good player. Brian Burns is a good player.
Yeah.
Every team's got them.
Yeah.
And both of them got tackles for loss, along with Troy Hill. You can't have the perfect game from the O-line all the time.
Yeah.
Dak certainly gets a lot more time than an awful lot of quarterbacks we've seen play against us.
Mm-hmm.
You just felt like Bryce Young was on his toes, running for his life at least half the game. It's easy to overlook. And on this occasion, I would just like to overlook because it was a 33-10 scoreline, and the Panthers do have some talent on that defensive line. I don't know. They had to come after us somehow, and that's how they managed to do it. It was obviously limited, but you can't stop everybody.
Yeah. I mean, Rich, you've been a little bit not. I don't want to say critical, but you've kind of had a little bit of concern with Zach Martin in recent weeks. I mean, did those same concerns pop up again on Sunday evening?
It's not necessarily concerns about Zach Martin in and of himself. It's concerns about the general unit in that Zach Martin is clearly having to be pulled between pillar and post. And the whole thing with Terrence Steele this year, where the Cowboys are again experiencing the same lesson again, in that someone coming off an injury like that is not the same the next year after. Shock horror. No one could have seen that coming. I've never been that hot, and it feels mean to say it. I've never been that hot on Bialish. Just haven't. And I feel he's getting exposed a bit now. I feel he's been able to hide a bit with an All-Pro next to him. Now that he's having to also help out Steele, who's, still, like people have said, still ascending. Hopefully he is on his way back to his normal self now at the right time. That is showing up a lot more for Bialish.
Yeah.
And I feel he's getting shown up now, which is one of the reasons why I wanted who I wanted in the draft. But instead, he's now sat on the sidelines for New York doing Jack. Unfortunate there. But he's...
Yeah.
And I mean, Zach Martin, it's a good point. Zach Martin, he's being pulled from pillar to post. I don't have any massive concerns about him in and of himself. Everyone's a good player in this league. If Zach Martin gets beat on one or two plays every now and again by a genuinely good player, I'm not worried. I don't have concerns. But in terms of to the point where you said, everyone can't be amazing all the time. They can't, but a unit can be. And a unit can pick up the slack for other people who aren't having a great day. Zach Martin obviously trying to do that for two people, like I've just said.
Yeah.
The obvious counter to that is the 2016 season, which I know I keep coming back to, but they threw everyone around and ran through everyone that season.
The glory days, Rich.
Yeah.
The glory days.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the thing. It's possible. We know it's possible because we've done it. Just gotta do it again. That's where the holes are. Gotta plug the holes.
And
special mention though to Terrence Steele when he wipes out the two defenders at once.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember what position they played. They may have been cornerbacks. There may have been a linebacker in there somewhere. But if you haven't seen it yet, folks, go and see the run play where Terrence Steele wipes out two defenders at the same time.
Yeah.
There is potential in the run game there. Let's just say.
I mean, if we're getting pancake blocks like that from our tackles every game, I think we'll all be happy. But I mean, like, kind of to expand a little bit on your point, Rich, like the Bialish situation is a concern for me in that he's out of contract at the end of this season. It's not a very good center class in the draft this year. And teams are not going to give up a good center very easily. So it's a concern for me that he might be back on this team next season.
Well, this is the thing, is if he's back, like the point that was made earlier, a lot of quarterbacks would be happy to have the time that Dak does have. It's better than a lot of lines in this league, Bialish included. So you kind of, to a point, got to roll with the punches and have what you have. Ultimately, it comes down to, is this front office going to go out and do something to make a splash to affect things? But again, like I've been saying previously, they've got problems there. They've got to find out what they're doing and make a decision, I believe, on the left side as well to sort that out. You would imagine and hope Steele is going to be fine, which then means Zach Martin can concentrate on himself, or at least just helping out Biadish and elevating things there. But I mean, you've got to do something, and you've got to hit, because like we said before, they've made effort, they've tried, and apart from Tyler Smith, for a while, haven't made any great impact. But then I'd argue maybe you haven't made enough effort and done the right things to have that effect. But then, like you said, you can't really do that this year heading into this draft with the way it looks. So you're going to have to do something. And if you can't do the draft, you're going to maybe have to do that. But the Cowboys don't have a massive amount of draft capital coming into this, do they, as far as I'm aware?
No.
No. So
let's not trigger Graham.
So, yeah, not great.
To be fair, and what we like to see is that people will come back in with a different point of view. Elizabeth has said Biadish seems to be stepping up more as blocking, fumble recovery, and keeping Dak protected. Don't believe anyone could replace Travis Frederick, but Biadish is getting it done. And then she said Tyler Smith and Jalen Tolbert are my concern. I'm not sure about Tyler. I mean, I think Tyler has really settled in at left guard if they can sort out what they're doing at left tackle.
Yeah, he would settle in even more if they would leave him in the one position.
Yeah.
But to go back to the Biadish contract situation, 2 years ago we let Connor McGovern walk, wasn't good enough. We let Williams walk, wasn't good enough. In fact, it was McGovern last spring.
Williams went first, and then Connor McGovern.
2 years ago we let Williams walk,
this year.
Wasn't good enough. Last year we let McGovern walk, wasn't good enough. Now I understand that.
Yeah.
Because they brought in Tyler Smith.
Yeah.
But if we can't bring in the replacement, I think we're just going to have to bite the bullet and try and offer Biadish some sort of short-term deal, because they need with a capital N. Rich will agree with me on this. They need a left tackle.
Yeah.
They must do something at left tackle by the end of day 2. Because
wouldn't leave it that late. End of day 1. If you haven't done it by the end of day 1, it's too late. Unless someone has fallen for some dramatic reason, it's too late. Really, it's probably too late.
Yeah, you're talking about the Cowboys' famed second round pick on risk.
History is not kind.
Yeah, absolutely. Lebarski has come in and said, I don't want Brock Hoffman starting next year. I don't think there will be any danger that Brock Hoffman will be a starter next year, Lebarski. It's more if they can do something in free agency or if they can do something through the draft. And if failing all of that, they re-sign Tyler Biadish. But gentlemen, look, I know we're on a tight schedule. So is there anything else you want to discuss from Sunday's game before we get out of here?
No,
I mean, it would be nice to have a Cowboys receiver over 50 yards. I get that.
Yeah,
that got done. We never looked like losing the game, and it was great. But they spread it around so much. I suppose that's a good thing in a way, but
do you think Dallas is holding back, or Mike McCarthy is holding back
I
at all
think so.
in any way, because I cannot for the life of me wrap my head around how, like, getting someone in and not utilizing, getting Cooks in and not utilizing him, a la how they did with Hilton last year, is one thing. Increasing his targets and then getting to the point where he has a ridiculously good game and then going backwards is another thing entirely for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's it's a question I find myself asking myself. Maybe I'm just being hopeful. Maybe it's a bit of copium, I don't know. But, extra sugar for the Kool-Aid and all that. But it's a question I find myself asking myself.
Yeah.
Like when Elizabeth raised the point about Jalen Tolbert, it's now time to see somebody step up. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be our second round pick, Schoonmaker? Is it going to be third round pick, Jalen Tolbert? I don't know. It's just you can't rely on CeeDee Lamb every single game.
Yeah.
He's not Calvin Johnson. He's not Michael Irvin. He's a very good receiver. He's clearly our number one receiver, and I think he'll get number one money. Maybe not reset the market, but he will get number one money sooner or later. But when they've found a formula to take care of Lamb, who's next?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why are you even waiting for someone to step up? You've gone out and gotten and done the hard work and gotten a proven 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah.
In multiple places with multiple teams, multiple quarterbacks, multiple seasons. You're not giving him and feeding him enough. Why? What's the sense in waiting for someone else to do it when, like Mark says, worry about the offseason when it's the offseason. Focus on now. There's a lot of football to be played. We'll play the football, get Brandon Cooks the goddamn ball.
Yeah.
Because when you've done it and you've been able to do it in the past, things tend to work out reasonably well. The good thing I liked last time was when he wasn't getting it, Turpin was getting it a little bit.
Yeah.
But still, a little bit.
Just off the top of your heads, right? So Lamb has smashed through the 1,000 yards by Thanksgiving. Superb effort. Fantastic. Who's next on the list and how much have they got? Anyone want to hazard a guess?
Brandon Cooks. But
it's
I'm gonna
Jake Ferguson, and it's about 400 yards.
It's
it's
Jake Ferguson, 386, and then Brandon Cooks, 380.
Yeah.
And how much is that skewed by one game?
Yeah.
Now, I know we won the game, and we're not talking like we won the game, but the point I raised earlier on, they are 0-2 against teams over 500, and coming up in January, the 49ers will go, we're doubling CeeDee Lamb. The Eagles will go, we're doubling CeeDee Lamb. Who's next?
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy,
waving
like this.
Yeah.
And end zones there. Like, pass me the ball. My name's Brandon. Nice to meet you. By the way, I can give you 1,000 yards. Wall.
So Joe was very much agreeing, and look, this comment has come in a few times, so I'll address it before we get out of here. I'm going to use Mark Anthony's comment because it seems to be the best one. It's kind of tying in a lot of what the points we're making. It's not that we're holding back; it's that they're trying new wrinkles. When was the last time we saw the Wildcat? I hope we never try it again, but I get it. I mean, I hope we're not going to see the Wildcat.
This is the
from year on.
mentality. This for me speaks to the mentality. The fact that the Wildcat is still in the playbook and you're going to go out and do stuff like that says to me you're not taking this seriously. This game seriously. Wildcat. It says to me you're not taking it seriously, which in turn is going to bleed into the players not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Which is maybe exactly what's happened. I mean, we've seen it in the past. Like we said earlier, Cowboys have a bit of a habit, annoyingly, of playing down the teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think necessarily the play callers disagree massively with the play caller for this season.
Yeah. I think it's just consistent game-winning play calling is what we want to see. And as you guys have kind of alluded to, it's getting Brandon Cooks involved, who's a 1,000-yard receiver. It's not throwing the ball to 9 different people to make sure that everyone gets a touch and everyone gets a reception. You know, as you guys rightly alluded to, what happens when we go to Pennsylvania in the snow in January, or we go to Levi Stadium in January? That's what concerns me, and that's what we want to see.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And
I know they brought in Cooks to be something different, but the Cowboys don't play with something different. The Cowboys, it's a 3-step drop, get the ball out. It's the West Texas offense, or whatever you want to call it. It's count to 3, throw the ball. Count to 3, throw the ball. That's not Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks needs to beat somebody after 10 and then stretch the field. That's a 5-step drop. That's holding on to the ball for a little bit. I understand you brought him in for something different, but you need to factor in that something different. It's too, like, let me just look this up. So
this goes to the question of, again, Brian, offensive line.
Yeah.
Was there any point in bringing in Brandon Cooks? If you can't utilize him, you know, it's all well and good having a shiny, expensive Lamborghini on the drive. If you can't afford to put fuel in it,
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I mean, the thing is, you gave up, what was it, a 5th-round pick to get Brandon Cooks?
What could you have done with that? What could you have done with the money? Bearing in mind people that moved in the off-season. It's one of those things, but yes.
It is. So, gentlemen, anything else you guys want to discuss, or shall we wrap it up?
I think we're good for now.
Yeah, Brandon Aubrey missed an extra point. The world is falling.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry, let me get the point up here. Labarski has said it's time to find a new kicker.
There we go.
I mean, I was covering the game for Twitter. I didn't realize for 20 minutes that he had missed the extra point. I had already put it up, and I think, what was it? The last thing was a field goal, wasn't it? And I was going, wait, is it not 31? And I was like, oh, he missed an extra point. Damn. So I took a lot of heat on Twitter for that one.
As you should. Pay attention, Brian.
Absolutely. But look, there will be a show tomorrow evening. So Mike and the guys will be at the pre-game tailgate. And I think the plan is that they're going to go live at about 8:30 here in the UK and Ireland, live from the tailgate. And I'm not sure if they're going to do a pre-game show or not with that. But stay tuned to socials tomorrow, and we'll try and update you as we know what's happening.
Yeah, anything could happen. Just tune in, see what chaos unfolds. It'll be eventful.
I found my stat. So the longest reception, 24 yards.
Yeah.
By Jake Ferguson. It wasn't even by Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not going to stretch the field, that's going to make things difficult.
It's like I feel
especially
like
in January.
I feel like the Albus Dumbledore meme was just like,
Lebarski, you making fun of my Irish accent? I said 8.5, not half 80.
8.
8.5. That's it. Well, look, gentlemen, as we said, look, we all need to get out of here. But look, stay tuned to socials for the next 24 hours, and we'll keep you up to date as to what's going to happen. It's a good night from me.
Graham.
And it's a good night from him.
Oh, that's what I was. Yeah, that's good. Ruined it. I'm angry at you.
Good night, everybody.
I hope Lebarski gets you.